The wind howled through the open door of the transport plane as Captain Maya Sterling checked her equipment one final time. It was 11:37 p.m. and the moonless night stretched endlessly below. Her mission was simple in theory but deadly in practice. Drop behind enemy lines, gather intelligence on the new weapon facility, and extract before dawn. What she didn't know was that someone aboard her own aircraft had signed her death warrant. Before we dive in, tell us where in the world are you watching from? If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's episode is truly mind-blowing. Let's get started. Maya had always been different from other soldiers. While her teammates relied on brute force and heavy weapons, she preferred stealth and precision. Her small frame and quick thinking had saved her unit countless times. Tonight, those same qualities would be put to the ultimate test. As she stood at the edge of the plane, Maya felt the familiar flutter of pre-jump nerves. She had made over 200 jumps in her career, but something felt wrong tonight. The crew seemed tense, avoiding eye contact. Even her usual jump partner, Sergeant Jackson Mills, had been unusually quiet during the flight. The red light above the door switched to green. Time to go. Maya leaped into the void, her body cutting through the cold night air. For 30 seconds, she experienced the pure freedom of freefall, watching the enemy territory grow larger below. At exactly the right altitude, she pulled her ripcord. Nothing happened. Maya's blood turned to ice as she yanked the cord again, harder this time. Still nothing. Her main parachute was completely unresponsive. Training kicked in immediately. She reached for her reserve chute, her hands surprisingly steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. This backup parachute deployed partially, but something was wrong with it too. Instead of the clean, controlled descent she expected, Maya found herself spinning wildly, dropping much faster than normal. The ground rushed up to meet her with terrifying speed. Maya crashed through the canopy of a dense forest, branches tearing at her face and uniform. She hit the ground hard, her body rolling several times before coming to rest against a fallen log. Pain shot through her left shoulder and right ankle, but she was alive. For several minutes, Maya lay perfectly still, listening for any sounds that might indicate enemy patrol. The forest was eerily quiet except for the distant hum of generators. She was definitely behind enemy lines, but exactly where remained a mystery. Carefully, Maya extracted herself from her tangled parachute and took inventory of her injuries. Her shoulder was dislocated but functional, and her ankle was sprained but would support her weight. More concerning was the obvious sabotage of her equipment. Someone had deliberately tampered with both her parachutes, ensuring they would fail. But who and why? Maya's communication device had been damaged in the crash, leaving her completely cut off from command. According to her mission briefing, the extraction point was 12 kilometers north, but that was assuming a normal drop zone. Now she had no idea where she was or how far she had drifted during her terrifying descent. The sound of approaching vehicles forced Maya to move. She gathered her essential gear and melted into the dense undergrowth, just as searchlights began sweeping the crash site. Through the trees, she could see enemy soldiers examining her parachute remains. They were speaking in clipped, efficient tones, clearly professionals who knew their job. Commander Viktor Petrov stepped out of the lead vehicle, his tall frame imposing even in the dim light. He was known throughout the intelligence community as a brilliant tactician and ruthless interrogator. Maya had studied his file extensively, but seeing him in person was different. His cold gray eyes seemed to miss nothing as he surveyed the crash site. Spread out in a 2-kilometer radius, Petrov ordered his men in accented English. The operatives survived the crash. Find them before dawn, or none of you will see another sunrise. Maya pressed herself deeper into the shadows as soldiers fanned out through the forest. She needed to put distance between herself and the search teams, but moving through unfamiliar terrain in darkness while injured would be challenging. Worse, she had no idea what kind of facility she had landed near, or how many enemy personnel were in the area. As the hours passed, Maya moved carefully through the forest, using her training to avoid detection. The pain in her ankle was getting worse, forcing her to stop frequently. By 3:22 a.m., she had only covered 2 kilometers, and the distant sounds of pursuit were getting closer. That's when she saw the lights through the trees. A large compound stretched across a valley below, surrounded by high walls and guard towers. From her elevated position, Maya could see soldiers patrolling the perimeter and vehicles moving between buildings. This had to be the weapon facility from her mission briefing, but it was much larger than intelligence had suggested. Maya settled into a concealed observation post and began taking mental notes. The facility had 3 main buildings connected by underground tunnels. The largest building had unusual ventilation systems and power lines, suggesting it housed some kind of manufacturing operation. Armed guards were posted at regular intervals, but Maya noticed their patrol patterns were predictable. As dawn approached, Maya realized she needed shelter and medical attention. Her ankle was swelling badly, and dehydration was becoming a serious concern. The forest offered no sustainable hiding places, and the search teams would find her eventually. She needed to take a calculated risk. Commander Petrov had established his field command post in a reinforced bunker overlooking the facility. From here, he could coordinate both the search for the crashed operative and the security of his secret project. The new weapon system was nearly complete, and any intelligence leak could jeopardize months of development. At 6:15 a.m., Petrov received an update from his search teams. They had found tracks leading toward the facility but had lost the trail in rocky terrain. The operative was injured but still mobile, demonstrating exactly the kind of skills that made them dangerous. Double the perimeter guards, Petrov instructed his deputy, and initiate lockdown protocols for the main facility. If this operative reaches the compound, I want them contained immediately. What Petrov didn't know was that Maya had been watching his command post for over an hour. The bunker was positioned perfectly for observing the facility, but its isolation also made it vulnerable to infiltration. Maya had counted only 4 guards and identified 2 possible entry points. The decision was risky beyond measure, but Maya's training had taught her that sometimes the most audacious plan was the only one that worked. Instead of trying to escape, she would capture the enemy commander and use him to learn about the facility's secrets. Maya spent the morning studying the bunker's defenses and guard rotations. The structure was well built but not impregnable. A ventilation shaft on the east side provided a possible entry point, though reaching it would require scaling a 15-foot wall while injured. At 1:45 p.m., the guards changed shifts, creating a brief window of reduced surveillance. Maya made her move, using her remaining strength to climb the wall despite the agony in her ankle. The ventilation shaft was even smaller than it had appeared from a distance, barely wide enough for her slight frame. Crawling through the narrow ductwork was torture for Maya's injured shoulder, but she gritted her teeth and pressed forward. The shaft led directly into the command center, where she could hear Petrov's voice issuing orders. Through a ventilation grate, she could see him standing before a bank of monitors, his back to her position. Maya waited for the perfect moment. When Petrov dismissed his aide and was alone in the command center, she struck. The ventilation grate gave way silently, and Maya dropped into the room like a shadow. Before Petrov could react, she had her sidearm pressed against his neck. "Don't move, don't speak, don't even breathe loudly," Maya whispered in his ear. "I'm the operative you've been hunting, and right now you're my only ticket out of here." Petrov was a seasoned commander who had faced death many times, but the sudden appearance of his quarry caught him completely off guard. This small injured woman had somehow penetrated his most secure facility, and now held his life in her hands. "You cannot escape," Petrov said quietly, testing Maya's resolve. "My facility is surrounded by 3 defensive perimeters and 200 soldiers. Surrender now, and I will ensure you are treated according to military conventions." Maya pressed the weapon harder against his neck. "Tell me about the weapon you're developing here. The real purpose of this facility." For a moment, Petrov considered trying to overpower his captor. Maya was clearly injured and exhausted, possibly giving him an advantage despite her training, but something in her voice warned him that she was far more dangerous than her appearance suggested. "The facility produces advanced electromagnetic pulse weapons," Petrov admitted reluctantly, "devices capable of disabling entire power grids or military communication networks from hundreds of kilometers away." Maya's mind raced as she processed this information. EMP weapons of that magnitude could shift the balance of power dramatically, potentially crippling her country's defenses without firing a single conventional shot. This intelligence was worth far more than her original mission parameters. "How many weapons have been completed?" Maya demanded. 3 prototype units, Petrov replied. "Full production begins next month." Maya realized she had stumbled onto something much bigger than anyone had imagined. The enemy wasn't just developing a new weapon. They were preparing to launch a coordinated attack that could paralyze multiple targets simultaneously. The sound of footsteps in the corridor outside interrupted Maya's interrogation. Petrov's security team was conducting their regular check-in. In moments, they would discover their commander's situation and sound the alarm. "Call them off," Maya ordered. "Act normally or you'll be dead before they reach the door." Petrov nodded to the approaching soldiers, maintaining his composure despite the weapon at his throat. "Status report," he called out in his normal tone. "Perimeter secure, Commander," came the reply through the door. "No sign of the infiltrator." "Continue the search," Petrov responded.
"Focus on the northern sector." The footsteps retreated, buying Maya precious time.
But she knew her window of opportunity was closing rapidly. Soon, someone would notice Petrov's extended absence or detect signs of her infiltration. Maya made a decision that went against every tactical principle she had learned. Instead of trying to escape with her prisoner, she would destroy the facility and its weapons. The mission had evolved far beyond intelligence gathering. Now it was about preventing a potential catastrophe. "You're going to help me destroy those prototype weapons," Maya informed Petrov. The commander's eyes narrowed. "Even if I cooperate, you cannot possibly succeed. The weapons are stored in a vault with multiple security systems. It would take hours to breach, time you do not have." Maya smiled grimly. "Then you better hope you remember the access codes correctly." For the next 30 minutes, Maya forced Petrov to guide her through the facility's security protocols while maintaining the pretense that everything was normal. Using his command codes and biometric access, they bypassed several checkpoints, moving deeper into the complex. The weapons storage vault was located 3 levels underground, protected by blast doors and armed guards. But Petrov's presence and authority provided Maya with the perfect cover. To the guards, it appeared their commander was conducting a routine inspection with a new technical specialist. Inside the vault, Maya stared at the 3 prototype EMP weapons. Each device was roughly the size of a briefcase but contained technology that could cripple entire cities. The implications were staggering. Working quickly, Maya used explosives from her tactical kit to rig demolition charges around the weapons and their support systems. The blast wouldn't just destroy the prototypes, it would collapse the entire underground level, ensuring nothing could be salvaged. "You realize this action will accomplish nothing," Petrov said as Maya armed the charges. "We have backup facilities, redundant research data. You are merely delaying the inevitable." Maya turned to face him, her expression deadly serious. "Maybe, but sometimes delaying the inevitable is enough to change everything." The timer on the explosives showed 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Maya had originally planned to escape with Petrov as her prisoner, but the facility's layout made that impossible. She would have to release him and try to reach the surface alone. "You have 4 minutes to evacuate your personnel," Maya told Petrov as she backed toward the vault exit. "After that, anyone still in the lower levels won't be coming back up." Petrov stared at her with something resembling respect. "Why warn me? You could have simply let the explosion kill dozens of my people." Maya paused at the doorway. "Because some things are more important than winning." The next few minutes were a blur of chaos as Maya raced through the facility, while alarms blared throughout the complex. Petrov had immediately ordered an evacuation, and soldiers were streaming toward the exits in controlled panic. In the confusion, Maya's small figure went largely unnoticed. She reached the ground floor with 90 seconds to spare, her injured ankles screaming with every step. The main exit was blocked by evacuating personnel, forcing Maya to find an alternative route. A window in the eastern wing offered her only chance. Maya smashed through the reinforced glass just as the charges detonated 3 stories below. The explosion sent shockwaves through the entire facility, collapsing the underground levels and sending a pillar of smoke and flame into the dawn sky. The blast threw Maya clear of the building, and she rolled across the compound's courtyard as debris rained down around her. When the dust settled, Maya found herself surrounded by enemy soldiers, their weapons trained on her prone form. She was battered, exhausted, and completely outnumbered, but the mission was complete. The prototype weapons were destroyed, and the intelligence she had gathered would help her country prepare for the remaining threats. Commander Petrov approached through the smoke, his uniform torn but his bearing still proud. "Remarkable," he said, genuinely impressed despite everything. "In 12 hours you have accomplished what our intelligence services claimed would require a full military operation." Maya struggled to her feet, ignoring the pain that racked her entire body. The person who sabotaged my parachute did me a favor. I learned more in one night behind your lines than months of surveillance could have provided. As enemy medics treated her injuries and soldiers prepared her transport, Maya reflected on the mission's unexpected turns. Someone in her own unit had tried to kill her, but their betrayal had inadvertently led to a much greater victory. The sabotaged parachute had been intended as her death sentence, but instead it had become the key to uncovering and stopping a devastating weapon program. The identity of the traitor would have to wait for another day. Right now, Maya was content knowing that 3 cities would wake up tomorrow with their power grids intact, their communications functioning, their lives unchanged by weapons that would now never be deployed. As the transport vehicle carried her away from the smoking ruins of the facility, Maya Sterling closed her eyes and allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. She had been betrayed, shot down, and left for dead, but she had also proven that sometimes the most dangerous operative is the one nobody sees coming. The mission was over, but Maya knew her war was just beginning. Somewhere in her own ranks, a traitor was waiting to strike again. When she returned home, she would have more than intelligence reports to deliver. She would have questions that demanded answers and a burning desire to discover who had turned her final jump into what they hoped would be her last.